The Witcher 3 gained overwhelmingly positive reviews from critics and fans alike. Metacritic gave it an aggregate score of 93 out of 100 on PC, whilst GameSpot gave it a solid 10 out of 10. There were many keys to the game's success, but perhaps what set The Witcher 3 apart from most RPGs was its gritty and sometimes even depressing atmosphere. What is unique about The Witcher 3 is the emphasis it places on moral ambiguity. Moral ambiguity in the sense that many of the game's wrongdoers, such as the Bloody Baron or Olgierd, have motivations that aren't purely evil. Equally, the protagonist, Geralt of Rivia, is often forced to make impossibly difficult decisions. Take, for instance, the Whispering Hillock questline. When Geralt of Rivia confronts the malevolent spirit in the tree, he can choose either to trust it in its claim that it can save the orphans from the crones, or be skeptical and refuse its request. If you free the ghost and allow it to save the orphans, you inadvertently sacrifice the village of Downmoran, as well as Anna and Philip Strenger. The vengeful spirit, angry at the villagers for helping to imprison it, massacres dozens of the peasants. Equally, the crones turn Anna into a hag as punishment for letting the children escape, a fate that leads to Philip Strenger hanging himself. There is no right decision, not least because Geralt doesn't know the consequences when he first makes the call on whether or not to free the spirit. Are 3 innocent children worth a village of adults, Philip and Anna combined? This quest occurs early on in The Witcher 3 and it sets the bar high. However, The Witcher 3's impeccable standard in storytelling is undermined by the final stretch of the game, the point at which Eredin, King of the Wild Hunt, comes to the fore. There are 3 reasons that Eredin is a mediocre main antagonist. The first is that he is unequivocally evil. The King of the Wild Hunt desires to capture Ciri to harness her power to enable the NL to invade other worlds. Eredin's own world is dying. He needs to find new land to conquer and settle. On top of this, his people, the NL, are warmongers. Such a fact is seen not least by the genocide committed against the humans of their own world many years ago. In some narratives, having an unequivocally evil villain can be beneficial. Easy to hate, they can provide real gravity to the final confrontation. However, in The Witcher 3, which goes to such lengths to emphasise that the world is far from black and white, Eredin's singular motivations are rather out of place. The writers could have done more to nuance the Wild Hunt's motivations. For instance, why not emphasise more the need for the NL elves to use Ciri to escape the destruction of their own planet? Sure, they could show Eredin to be warlike and cruel, but they could have additionally portrayed him as a defender and champion of his people, a people who, without his help, will be extinguished. You might point out that plenty of other villains in The Witcher 3, from Gaunter O'Dim to the Crones of the Bog, are equally one-dimensional. That's technically true. The Crones are witches who eat children, whilst Gaunter O'Dim is a demon who pleasures from human suffering. However, at least these antagonists are situated in morally ambiguous contexts. In particular, The Witcher 3 emphasises the complicity of humans in acts of evil. What's truly depressing isn't, say, that the witches consume children, but the fact that the villagers are willing to sacrifice their own offspring in the first place. The villagers claim that the child sacrifices are necessary. Sometimes there just isn't enough food to go around, and the sacrifices help them keep favour with the crones who are so critical to their survival. Their actions, therefore, might not be morally right, but there's an element of justification nonetheless. The Witcher 3's sense of realism stems from its recognition that humans, when they act evilly, rarely do so for the sake of evil itself. Equally in Hearts of Stone, we're asked who's more evil, Gaunter O'Dim, a demon devoid of human emotion, or Olgierd von Everick, a human capable of empathy, who chose to sacrifice his own brother for personal gain nonetheless. So you see, it's incongruous for the developers to offer us Eredin as a final antagonist when previous antagonists and those in the DLCs are either morally ambiguous themselves or situated in such ambiguous contexts. Eredin, quite simply, goes against the ethos of The Witcher 3. The ultimate effect of Eredin's lack of complexity is to render the final climax surprisingly anti-climactic. There's more to the sense of unattachment in the final confrontation than a lack of moral ambiguity though. Critical too is the fact that Eredin is simply not present for most of the game. He only becomes a major part of the narrative in the final act or so. Eredin lacks a sense of gravity and presence in the final battle because there's next to no build-up. In all honesty, I harboured more hatred for Imlerith than I did for Eredin. Imlerith has more screen time and more of a personality. CD Projekt Red shouldn't have expected us to care about a villain who they spent so little time actually developing. On the whole, the final confrontation with Eredin is underwhelming. Not only is the King of the Wild Hunt bland, but we see so little of him that the final confrontation just doesn't have any weight. I felt far more emotion battling the crones of the bog, Odim or Detzlaff, than I did the king of the Wild Hunt.